We are learning Daf Chav Zayin Amid Aleph today in Yoma. We're going to start again on the bottom of Chavav Amid Beis. Okay, so our discussion today will revolve around Hefshitan V'Nisuchan, which is skinning and cutting up the animal, which the Gemara said, Shavin Bazar, a zar. You don't need to be a Kohen to skin the animal and to be Manasseh, to cut it up. That is true at both a carbon tzibur and a carbon yachid. Samara wants to know, where do we know that from? So we're going to bring some sources. Here we go. Amr Chizkiya, minayin lahefshe v'nituach sheshava bizar. Where do we know that a zar is allowed to do these things? Because it's like a middle of the avodah. You know what I mean? Shechita, that's before you got started. But here we're in the middle of the avodah, and you get a zar can do these things? That's what's the weird part of this. Shneimar says, yeah. Pasuk says, "V'nosenu b'nei Aaron HaKohen eish al mizbeach." Aaron HaKohen puts eish on the mizbeach. I'm sorry, the b'nei Aaron HaKohen put eish on the mizbeach. Kohanim put the eish on the mizbeach. Says the Gemara, "Nesinas eish b'ay kahuna, hefshesh v'nituach loy b'ay kahuna." Says the Hilgi Gemara, "Haimi b'ay legufei." What are you saying? We need this pasuk to tell you that the Nesinas Eish needs to be done with a Kohen. You can't tell me it's going to be Mamayit other things. It says, Amar Simi Amar Barashi Ashkache La'abaye. Listen to this. Shimi, I don't know if it's Simi or Shimi Barashi, he happened to be around Abaye when Abaye was being masber this to his son. And he overheard the conversation. Okay, so Ashkechise la'Abaye to have a masber le'lebrei. So Abaye was explaining to his son, Achizkiya's Yisoid, and he told him like this: V'shachat. The Torah says v'shachat. So I see that shechita is kasher bizar kasher. V'chimei ayin basa. Where do I know that from? How do you get there? How do you get from the word v'shachat that is ksher bizar? It says Mechlal Shenem, or the pasuk says Va'ata uvanecha itach tishmur es kunaschem. You and your sons will guard your kahuna. Shemei ani afilu shchita. So I would have assumed shchita is included in things that the Kohanim have to guard to make sure that only they do it and nobody else does it. Talmud Loimar. Then the pasuk says V'shochat es ben habakar l'fnei Hashem v'hikrivu b'nei Aharon hakayanim es Adam. You hear that pasuk? It says v'shachat, and then it says v'hikrivu. So you got two stages: shchita, and then kabbalah, and the rest of what you can do the dam. And then but it only says b'nei Aharon by v'hikrivu. Mi kabbalah v'elach mitzvahs kahuna. From kabbalah, that's receiving the blood and on. That's when you need Kohanim. V'samach yodai v'shachat smicha shchita limit ala shchita sheksher b'zar. That's going to be kosher with the zar. Okay, so this is how I know that shchita is kosher b'zar. Now michti says again. Now that was actually I think it's a Mishnah somewhere. Rashi says that from Mechlal till there. So that's how I know that shchita is kosher bizar, because it says v'shachat and then v'krivu b'nei Aharon, and the rule is from kabbalah v'elach you need kahuna. Before kabbalah you can have a zar. Great. So Gemara says mechti. Let's see. Mi kabbalah v'elach mitzvahs kahuna. So I already know that any avodah that's going on after Kabbalah is a mitzvah's kahuna, which is going to mean any time that the Torah is going to write b'nei Kohanim or something to do with a Kohen on a avodah which is done after Kabbalah, that's superfluous, because I already learned from this word ve'krivu b'nei Aaron that from Kabbalah va'elach is with Kohanim. So now he has a kasha v'nasnu b'nei Aaron lamali. When the Torah says this v'nasnu is after so when it says that the Bnei Kohen are putting the Eish al Mizbeach, lamali, what do I need that for? I know it's the Kohanim. It's just, if they're putting the fire on the Mizbeach, that was done after the Shechita, after the Kabbalah. So obviously it's done with Kohanim. Says the Gemara, must be L'Me'ute Heshet V'Nituach. Okay, so that is the explanation for for Chizkiah. Chizkiah said that we learned from V'Nasu B'nei Aharon HaKohen, Eish Shal Mizbeach. So Nesinas Eish Davka is on with Kohanim, but the Hefshet V'Nituach is not. So the Gemara is explaining the background to that drasha. The background is that the Kohanim, we know that everything Mikabbalah V'Elech is on with Kohanim. So why is the Torah writing again V'Nasu B'nei Aharon? Whether they're going to put the fire on the Mizbeach? That's coming to say that B'nai Aharon do that, but they do not do Hefshet V'Nituach. It's come to Mamayit Hefshet V'Nituach. Okay. In fact, the Gemara, V'akati. I got a problem. It's you do need to write V'nasnu B'nai Aharon HaKohen by the Nesinas Eish, even though it's after Kabbalah. You know why? Sal Kadai Techamina, I might have thought, Kiven the Lav Avoida, de Ma'akva Kaparihi, Loiti by Kahuna. Kamash Malan, de by Kahuna. There's a good reason why it says V'nasnu B'nai Aharon HaKohen Eish, because there is. Let's say you didn't do that. Is that ma'akiv the kapara? No, only the avodah of the dam is ma'akiv the kapara. This wouldn't be ma'akiv the kapara. So Mela, I would have thought that it doesn't need kahuna. So that's why the Torah has to even V'nasu B'nai Aharon HaKohen by Nesinas Eish should tell me that it needs kahuna. Once it does that, once it tells me then now I need a. That means it's not extra. If it's not extra, I can't darshan from there that Davka B'nai Aharon, Davka Nesinas Eish, but Hefshet V'Nituach not. So I'm stuck without a drasha. Okay. Says the Gemara, El Mehacha. So you know what? We'll learn it from here. The shear's next door. Yeah, you can walk through here. Okay. So the Gemara says, I have another source. So here we're talking about putting the limbs onto the Mizbeach. They were set, B'nai Aharon, put the B'nai Aharon HaKohanim, put the Nesachim, the Rosh, the Poder, onto the Mizbeach. So again, if you're putting the limbs on the Mizbeach, obviously we're talking about after Kabbalah Saddam. So I know this is being done with Kohanim. This says the Gemara, Mikabbalah V'Elech, Mitzvahs Kahuna. So V'archu Lamali, why does it have to tell me V'archu B'nai Aharon HaKohanim? Why does it have to talk about the Kohanim doing this Avodah? Obviously, they're meant to do this Avodah because it's Mikabbalah V'Elech. Says the Gemara, so now we have a source. Lema'ute, it's coming to exclude Hefshet V'Nituach, which can be done by a Zar, doesn't need a Kohen. Meaning, V'archu, Davka the Aricha needs to be done with Kohanim, but the Hefshet and the Nituach can be done by a Zar. Try to Gemara. Why don't I say that it's coming to be Mamayit, the setting up of the two Gizrei Eitzim on the Mizbeach? That could be done by a Zar. Like, why are you jumping back to Hefshet V'Nituach? Why not be Mamayit and tell me, that V'Archu, that the B'nai Aharon HaKohanim have to, meaning it doesn't say it explicitly by the Shnei Gizrei Eitzim that has to be Kohanim. Yesterday we learned about that. It says we had a main Inyan. So if it's not explicit, so then maybe I should darshan from this pasuk of V'Archu B'nai Aharon HaKohanim Nesachim. They put the pieces onto the Mizbeach. The dafka there it has to be Kohen, but the Seder Shnei Gizrei Eitzim does not have to be. Okay, that's a fair question. How do you know which one? So the Gemara says, Mistavra. Let's use some logic. We're talking about the Hefshet V'Nituach of a carbon versus the setting up of the Maracha, putting logs on the fire. So what does it make more sense to be Mamayit? Something similar or something different? So the Gemara says, Divcha de Kavasei Mamayit. Well, we're talking about pieces of a carbon, and we're saying that these needs to be done with Kohanim. So I would be mamayit the carbon, that it doesn't need to be hefshev v'nituach with a Kohen. Okay, I hear that. What are we actually talking about here? We're talking about setting up the mizbeach, putting things on the mizbeach, siddur ha-mizbeach. So I would say, siddur the kavasei mamayit. Let's be mamayit, something like that. The pasuk is talking about putting the ivarim on the mizbeach, as opposed to that has to be done with the kohen, as opposed to putting the wood on the mizbeach doesn't need to be done with the kohen. So it was like you can go either way with that one. Someone says no, but it doesn't make sense to say that this siddur shnigas eitzim is going to be done by Ezra. We've been taught previously. Pasuk says v'hikra v'koyin es hakoil hamizbecha. The koyin brings everything onto the mizbech. Zu hoylachas evarim lekevesh. This is referring to bringing the limbs to the ramp. So hoylachas evarim hu debai kahuna. That is what necessitates kahuna. Hoylachas eitzim loy by kahuna. Taking the eitzim, bringing the eitzim to the mizbech doesn't need kahuna. Now, hasidur shnei gizreisim, but putting them on the mizbeach by kahuna, that for sure needs kahuna. Okay, so we're going to say, meaning you wouldn't need if there was a miyut that the shnei gizrei eitzim do not need to be put on the mizbeach with a kohen, then I would not need to tell you that it doesn't have to be brought to the mizbeach with the kohen. That's obviously, if you don't have to put it on the mizbeach with the kohen, then obviously you don't have to bring it to the mizbeach with the kohen. From the fact that I need a pasuk to be mamayit, the hoylacha of the shnei gizrei eitzim with a zar would be kosher, that must mean that putting it on the mizbeach needs to be done with a kohen. Oh, so if that's so then what is? So I know shnei gizrei eitzim needs to be a kohen. So now I'm back to va'archu. What's va'archu b'nei Aaron kohen, and what's that kohen to be mamayit? Va'archu lamali l'ma'ute hefshev v'nituach. Let's come to mamayit hefshev v'nituach. Okay, so that is going to be a good source, l'chayra, right?
Which can be done by the Zohar.
Which would be allowed to be done by Zohar. So we have two sources so far. We had Chizkiah's source, which was from V'nasu b'nei Aaron HaKohen. The Gemara didn't like that one because that is, we're coming from a place we wanted to, the Gemara said it's not such a good source because it's, that maybe I need to tell you that a kohen has to put the ish on the fire. That person can't be mamait something else because you need to tell me that because it's not something that's ma'ak of kapara. So it brings us a second source from va'archu b'nei Aaron HaKohanim, which is not going to come to be mamait siddur shnei gizrei eitzim because that you definitely need a kohen for. So it's open to be mamait hefshev v'nituach with the zar. Gavaldik. Okay. Now the next couple lines, the next couple words, the Gemara takes out, and we're just going to skip to the end of the line, and the Gemara is going to give us an alternative pshat. Ella, I'm going to give you another pshat. V'hiktir hakoyin as a koil lemai asa. What would that be coming to teach me? Lemeute hefshet v'nituach. That is the hektir hakoyin as a koil. The koyin is maktir everything. Then why does it have to tell me if the koyin's doing it? This is mikabol of elech. If it's mikabol of elech, it's kind to be mamayit something. What's it coming to be mamayit? Hefshet v'nituach, which could be done on by a zar. Now the Gemara is going to bring a few more psukim that have a koyin in it, and the kash is, why do I need to tell me a koyin in this pasuk if I know it's mikabol va'elech needs to be done with a koyin, and it's going to tell me what it's coming to teach us. So the hikr v'koyin es hakol mizbecha zu hayleches ivarim lakevesh, and the Gemara learns hayleches ivarim lakevesh hu debai kahuna hayleches eitzim loy by kahuna. So why does the Torah tell you that a koyin does this? It's coming to tell you that he only has to do the halacha of the ivarim, but the halacha of the wood, a kohen does not have to do. And then we learn from there as well that the siddur shnei eitzim would require kahuna. Now we have v'nasenu it says the pasuk that was a pasuk we brought already. V'nasnu is legufei, like we said previously. That's coming to tell me that you need a kohen to put the fire on the mizbech, and I need you to tell you that because I would have thought to be mamayit it because it's not by kapara, it's not ma'ak of kapara. Okay, v'archu shnayim. The pasuk says v'archu. That's plural. That's two people. Bnei Aharon shnayim. HaKohanim shnayim. The pasuk says v'archu bnei Aharon HaKohanim. So there are three plural words there. So the Gemara is darshaning that's two each gives me six. What does that teach me? Lamadnu letleh sheta'un shisha. This teaches me that a sheep is going to need a tleh is going to need 6 kohanim to be involved in it. Rashi says last skinny line shisha sheta'un shisha habasar bechamisha, like we learned in the Mishnah. The insides just need one person, as opposed to a aisle that needed 2, and I think par maybe needed more. Okay. Amar Hamnuna kashalei l'Rebbe Eliezer. Rebbe Eliezer was bothered. Hi, b'ben bakar ksiv. This pasuk of va'archu b'nei Aharon HaKohanim is talking about cattle, and cattle uben bakar esem va'arbabai. That needs 24 kohanim. So why are you darshaning how many kohanim you need for a teleh if this pasuk is talking about a par? Answer the Gemara, v'nichale. He explained it. The pasuk says al ha'etzim asher al ha'esh asher al hamizbeach, on the wood that's on the fire, which is on the mizbeach. So Gemara dashes Eza hu davar shenemer by etzim eshem mizbeach. What else do we have? These three inyanim. The Torah tells you that you need to have the maracha to misar the eish on the mizbech for it. What else do we have that for? Have the aimer zatleh. That's referring to the tleh. Rashi on Amid Bey says Tamid Shal Shacher his kasa by the marachas eitzim chadash b'chal beiker. The Torah requires new wood every morning. Ve'esh al mizbeach tukad boy v'hach moikta sidur hamarachi kedetain l'kam perik gimel ubir alei hakoyin eitzim habayker v'arach aleha ha'ila v'amar mar ha'ila rishayna. The ha'ila goes on first. Al v'shar kabanas lehusku l'chidish maracha. The rest of the kabanas don't require this, so that's why it's a fair drasha to tell me why that I could dashin pleh from this pasuk as well. V'hanach eitzim ve'esh techsivi b'ben bakar. You don't need to be when you're bringing on a ben bakar. You don't have to be machadish the mizbech. You don't have to do a new siddur eitzim. El mishum that dayan le'nemer b'parsha siddur hamaracha haksuva b'tzaves aharon v'kanis chol daber b'tzarchei oila v'otzach le'mer hechni tinasein kasav lankan v'nasno eish v'archu eitzim ta'asiddur maracha t'shachris koi. So, being that this is the first time the first oil that's being discussed is the ben bakar, so the Torah writes these the inyan of the Seder Maracha here, but it's really referring back to the Seder by the Tamid Shal Shachar. Gevaldik. All right, Mirz Hashem, on Shabbos we will learn Daf Chav Zayin Amud Beis and Daf Chav Ches Amud Aleph, and we'll finish up the parak, and then Sunday morning, Be'ez Hashem, we will begin the third parak.
Very good. Yeah.